He said the office needed him. I did not realize what the office really meant was a new smile sitting outside his door. My name is Julia, I am 30, and I used to believe I could read my husband like a familiar book. Nathan was steady, practical, the kind of man who color codes his calendar and cleans the coffee machine before bed. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming, where he spent half the night fixing a wobbly shelf and the other half asking me questions that felt like warm lamps in a dim room. I liked that about him. He listened more than he talked. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony with paper flowers and a playlist we made together on the living room floor. Our life was not glamorous, but it was ours. Saturday pancakes, shoes by the door in a neat line. Sunday grocery lists written in the margins of the newspaper. He worked in corporate operations at a mid-sized firm downtown. I managed a small design studio. We were not rich, but we were good. Or at least I thought we were. I remember the first time he mentioned her. It was a Tuesday. I had pasta boiling and he came in loosening his tie. He said a new secretary had started on his floor. Her name was Claire. Fresh out of college, bright, organized. She had already cleaned up a backlog of onboarding paperwork and rescued a chaotic meeting by printing the wrong deck in record time. He told the story like a small office miracle. I laughed and told him every office needs a Claire. The next few weeks were a blur of ordinary days. I did not think about her again until the late nights began to stack up. Quarter end, he said. Vendor audits, he said. A product recall that needed careful handling. None of it sounded strange. Nathan has always been the first to raise his hand when something needs fixing. He is good in storms. He knows which wires to cut and which to leave alone. What changed was the rhythm. He used to text me when he was running late. A quick on my way soon or save me leftovers. Now he would call briefly and rush through sentences. The office is wild today. Do not wait up. I will grab something from the deli downstairs. He sounded tired. He sounded important. He sounded like a man holding back a tide. I wanted to be supportive. I packed extra snacks in his bag. I sent dumb memes when the clock hit 8. I kept dinner warm and the porch light on. Some nights he came home after 10 with that specific office smell in his clothes, toner, stress, and too much air conditioning. He would kiss my forehead and say, "You are the best," and fall asleep hard enough to miss the alarm the next morning. One evening in early spring, I visited his building to bring him a thermos of soup. It felt sweet and wifely, in an old movie way. The lobby guard recognized me and waved me through. I remember the elevator ride was long and silver. The doors opened to a hallway lined with framed mission statements. I could hear keyboards and phones and the soft hum of people trying to look busy. That was the first time I met Claire. She stood up when I approached the reception desk outside Nathan's office. Blonde hair in a neat twist, dark green blouse, a smile that looked trained and effortless at once. She said, "You must be Julia," and I blinked because I had never said my name. She pointed to the thermos and said, "He talks about your cooking all the time." My brain followed that sentence under flattering, but my stomach did not agree. It felt like stepping on a stair that is not there. Nathan came out a moment later, surprised and grateful. He kissed my cheek and said, "You are an angel." Claire laughed and said, "See, told you she was real." She had a light, teasing way of speaking that made everything sound harmless. I found myself smiling back because that is what polite people do in offices filled with glass and reputation. On the way home, I tried to shake off the odd feeling. It was not jealousy. I do not think I am a jealous person. It was something else. A thin film over the evening that would not wash away. I told myself to be reasonable. New hires are enthusiastic. Secretaries know everyone's schedules and favorite snacks. A good assistant anticipates. A great one feels like glue. The late nights kept coming. He began saying the phrase working late so often that it stopped sounding like words. I noticed small changes. He had a new cologne he did not wear at home. He started guarding his planner like it contained nuclear codes. He moved from warm recollections about coworkers to neutral descriptions that gave me nothing. "How was your day?" I would ask. "Busy," he would say, and change the subject to my studio or the neighbor's dog. We still had our rituals. Friday pizza, 2 slices each on paper plates. Sunday laundry folded while we watched a detective show. He still reached for my hand in the grocery store. He still tugged the blankets to my chin when I fell asleep on the couch. The kindness did not vanish. It just began to feel like a script he was determined to keep performing. People think betrayal announces itself with a crash. Sometimes it walks in wearing a badge and a practiced smile. Sometimes it sits outside your husband's door, learns your name, compliments your soup, and becomes a detail you dismiss when your heart wants to believe in ordinary life. I kept believing. I chose errands over questions and patience over alarms. I told myself quarter end would end, that the audits would pass, that the tide would recede and bring him home with it. I did not know that the tide had already turned. I did not know that the office was not just work anymore. And I did not know that the night I decided to surprise him with dinner would be the night the story changed. Looking back, the signs were there long before the truth slapped me in the face. But signs are easy to ignore when you want to believe your marriage is safe. At first, it was the small things. Nathan used to keep his phone on the kitchen counter while we cooked together. Now, it followed him everywhere, even to the bathroom. He said it was because of work emails, but he would tilt the screen away when a notification popped up. If I asked, he would mutter something about corporate confidentiality and kiss my cheek to distract me. Claire's name started appearing in casual conversations too. Not in a suspicious way at first. He would say, Claire organized the files, Claire set up the meeting, Claire saved us from a scheduling disaster. I smiled and nodded, because that is what supportive wives do. But each Jimmy, I felt her presence seeping into our home, like perfume that lingers even when the person is gone. One Saturday, he mentioned her in a way that made me pause. We were cleaning out the garage, and he laughed about how Claire had teased him for being old-fashioned with his spreadsheets. She says I should use the new software instead. She even offered to teach me. He smiled at the memory, and something about it felt too warm, too personal. I asked, "Do you like her?" He froze for half a second, then said, "Of course. She makes my job easier." It was the right answer, but it felt rehearsed. The late nights grew heavier. At first, once a week, then twice, then almost every evening. He would stumble in around 11, loosen his tie, and drop onto the couch with a sigh. I offered him leftovers, but he always said he had grabbed something with the team. The team became his excuse, his invisible shield. But when I pressed for names, the details slipped. Just a few people. You don't know them. One night, I called his office around 9, just to hear his voice. Claire answered. Her tone was light, professional. "Mr. Turner's in a meeting. Can I take a message?" I almost laughed. "Mr. Turner, my Nathan." I asked how long he would be, and she hesitated. Hard to say. It's been a long day. He should be done soon. Something about the way she said it so practiced, so familiar made my skin crawl. I hung up and told myself not to spiral, but the image of her answering his phone so late at night would not leave me. What kind of secretary stayed after hours, just 2 screen calls? It got worse. At home, Nathan started dressing sharper for work. New ties. A tailored blazer he insisted was for an upcoming presentation. He wore cologne even on days he claimed he had no client meetings. When I asked why, he shrugged and said, trying to look the part. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Even his excuses changed. Instead of saying working late, he started using specific phrases like quarterly report or vendor audit. The words sounded polished, like they had been chosen carefully. I realized one night that I could not actually explain what his company did beyond broad strokes, and he used that to keep me at arm's length. Friends noticed too. My cousin asked at brunch, "Does Nathan always work this much?" I brushed it off, but a raised eyebrow lingered in my mind. At a neighborhood barbecue, one of his colleagues joked, "That man practically lives at the office now. Claire must be keeping him alive." Everyone laughed. My stomach knotted. I forced a laugh too. But inside, I was screaming. The tipping point came one evening when Nathan forgot to switch his jacket before tossing it on the chair. I was folding laundry when his phone buzzed. Claire's name lit up the screen. I did not mean to, but I saw the preview. "Don't forget tomorrow." Same place as last time. My breath caught. My hands shook. I wanted to open the message, but the phone locked before I could. My heart hammered. I put the phone back where I found it, my mind spinning. Same place as last time. What place? What last time? That night, he came home, smelling faintly of perfume. Not mine. I asked if he wanted a shower. He laughed, said he was too tired, and kissed me quickly before turning off the light. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying that text in my mind until the words burned. I started noticing everything after that. How he flinched when I mentioned Claire's name, how he brushed off questions with exaggerated not, how he left earlier in the mornings, claiming early meetings. He had always been dependable, predictable. Now he was a stranger, playing the part of my husband. One Friday, I packed his favorite lunch and drove to his office to surprise him. Claire was at the desk again. She smiled, but her eyes flickered with something I could not name. She said he was out at a client meeting, but her cheeks flushed as she spoke. I left the lunch with her, but as I walked away, I felt like I had just handed my trust to a thief. By then, my gut was screaming, but I still wanted proof. I still wanted to believe there was some explanation that would not break me. That he was tired, overworked, drowning in deadlines. That Claire was just efficient, not dangerous. I wanted to believe, because the alternative meant my whole life was about to crack open. The night I found out the truth was not planned. It started with a simple decision to surprise Nathan at the office with dinner. I thought it would be sweet, a reminder that even during the busiest weeks, he had a wife who cared enough to show up with warm food. I cooked his favorite stir-fry, packed it neatly in containers, and drove downtown. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than usual. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was fear. When I arrived, the building was mostly dark. Only a few windows glowed on the upper floors. The lobby guard raised an eyebrow when I walked in with the bag of food. "He's still up there?" I asked. The guard nodded slowly, like he knew something I didn't. The elevator ride felt endless. I could hear my heart pounding over the soft hum of the machinery. When the doors opened, the hallway was quiet. Too quiet for a workplace, supposedly buzzing with after-hours activity. I walked past framed mission statements and rows of empty cubicles until I reached Nathan's office. The door was closed. Light spilled out from the edges. I raised my hand to knock, but stopped when I heard it. Laughter. Low. Intimate. The kind of laugh you save for private moments. A woman's laugh. Claire's. I froze. My breath hitched in my throat. Slowly, I pushed the door open just enough to see. Nathan sat on the edge of his desk, tie loosened, shirt sleeves rolled up. Claire stood close, too close, her hand resting lightly on his knee as she leaned in. He said something I couldn't catch, and she laughed again, tilting her head back. Then, before I could blink, she kissed him, and worse, he kissed her back. Not startled, not resisting, like it was something they had done before, something familiar. The bag slipped from my hand. Containers clattered onto the floor, the sound sharp and shocking in the stillness. They both turned. Nathan's eyes went wide. "Julia," he whispered, like saying my name might erase what I had just seen. Claire stepped back quickly, her face draining of color. I should go," she stammered, grabbing her purse. She brushed past me, her perfume hitting me like an insult, and disappeared down the hall. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my chest on fire. Nathan rushed forward. "It's not what it looks like," he said, reaching for me. I laughed, harsh and broken. "Not what it looks like." "Nathan, I just watched you kiss her." His face twisted. It was a mistake. I was stressed. She was comforting me. It got out of hand. I stepped back, shaking my head, out of hand. "How long has this been going on?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "A few weeks," he admitted finally, his voice low. "A few weeks." That explained the late nights, the cologne, the texts, the guarded planner, all of it lined up in my head like dominoes falling. My stomach churned. I wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I turned and walked out. Nathan followed. "Julia, wait, please. We can fix this." It didn't mean anything. "You're the one I love." I spun around in the hallway, tears blurring my vision. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have touched her. You wouldn't have let her near you. You wouldn't have lied to my face every single night." He flinched, his shoulders sagging. "I made a mistake." I shook my head, my voice breaking. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." Over and over again, the elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside. He stood there, watching me, his face a mix of panic and regret. The doors slid shut between us, sealing the space like a coffin. When I got to the car, I broke. My hands gripped the steering wheel as sobs tore through me. The stir-fry sat spilled across the seat beside me, the smell of garlic and soy sauce filling the air. What had been meant as a gesture of love was now the cruelest reminder of how blind I had been. I drove home in silence, my phone buzzing nonstop with his calls. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Every ring felt like a knife twisting deeper. By the time I reached the house, I already knew nothing would ever be the same again. The man I trusted, the man I thought I knew, had betrayed me, not just with another woman, but with the one person who was supposed to be a background character in our story. A secretary, someone who had slipped into our lives under the guise of professionalism, only to become the reason it shattered. And Nathan had let it happen. That night, as I sat alone in the dark, one thought echoed louder than the rest. Betrayal does not always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people you kiss goodnight, the people you cook for, the people who swear they are working late. Morning came like a dare. I had barely slept, but the sun rose anyway, sliding across the floor like nothing had changed. I made coffee because that is what Bodhis do when minds are broken. The mug shook in my hand. I set it down and watched the steam curl up into the air like a ghost that refused to leave. Nathan called. The phone lit the counter with his name. I let it ring until it stopped. He called again. I watched it ring. I did not answer. Texts followed. I am sorry. Can we talk? Please pick up. I stared at the words until they blurred. I placed the phone face down and sat at the table like I might float away if I stood up. By noon, I knew avoidance would not protect me forever. I grabbed a tote and began putting things inside. Wallet keys, a folder with our mortgage papers. I did not know why I took them. The act of gathering felt like a small piece of control in a life that had spilled across a corporate carpet. I left the house and drove to the park where I go when I need to remember who I am without anyone else. There is a bench near a pond. Ducks cut little paths through the green water. Elderly couples walk laps and talk softly. I sat there and let the quiet fill me until my breath matched the pace of the day. Nathan found me anyway. I should have turned off location sharing weeks ago. He arrived out of breath, tie askew, hair pushed back like he had raked his hands through it a dozen times. He stopped a few feet away, like I was a cliff he might fall from. Julia, he said, voice rough. Please. I did not move. I kept my hands flat on my knees, palms down. It felt like holding myself to the earth. He sat on the far end of the bench. He looked smaller than I remembered. He looked like a man who had finally run out of pre-planned lines. I am sorry, he said. I know those words are worthless right now, but I am sorry. Silence stretched between us. Somewhere behind us, a child laughed. The sound felt like it belonged to a different planet. How long? I asked. The words were simple. They carried the weight of a building. He swallowed. 6 weeks. My stomach clenched. Was it only the kiss? I asked. Or was there more? His eyes fell to his hands. There was more. I nodded. I did not cry. I did not shout. I felt a slow click, like a lock sliding into place. Truth has that sound when it finally arrives. He kept talking, words spilled out like beads from a broken string, stress deadlines, late nights that turned into late talks. She was there. She was kind when he felt invisible. She laughed at his jokes I had heard 1,000 times. She made him feel young, he said. And then he stared at the pond like he had not meant to say that part out loud. I listened until I felt the shape of it. Not a story about passion. A story about access. The person who sits outside your door learns your rhythms, your moods, your sighs. If you let them, they learn where to slip in. Why did you not tell me you were lonely? I asked. Why did you not tell me you were drowning? He rubbed his forehead. Because I did not want to look weak. Because you are so capable. And I did not want to be another problem on your list. Because I thought I could fix it without breaking anything. You broke everything, I said quietly. He flinched. I know we sat in the thinnest kind of peace. The kind that only exists because both people have run out of ways to avoid what is there. I will end it, he said finally. I already told her it is over. I will switch floors. I will talk to HR. I will do whatever it takes. Counseling, time off, anything. I love you. I do not want to lose our life. It should have moved me. It used to take so little. A plan, an apology, a promise. But his words felt like towels on a kitchen floor after a pipe has burst. They might soak up the worst of it. They will not fix the crack. I need space, I said. I am going to my sister's for a while. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Do you want me to stay somewhere else? He asked. I can go to a hotel. Yes, I said. Today. He nodded slowly. Okay. He stood too, as if rising with me might keep something from collapsing. I stepped back. No hugs. New conciliations. We walked to the parking lot like two neighbors who had shared a fence and discovered a sinkhole between their yards. At my sister's apartment, I put my tote on the floor and folded into her arms. She did not pepper me with questions. She made tea and pushed a box of tissues across the table like a relay baton. I told her everything in a voice I barely recognized. When I finished, she squeezed my hand and said the only true thing that fit in the room, you did not deserve this. The next days were administrative and surreal at once. I texted Nathan a list of what to pack and when to pick it up. I added a note to leave his key on the hook by the door. He responded yes to every line. He sent a photo of the key on the hook like a receipt. Claire sent a message 2 days later. The preview on my phone read, "I am sorry." I stared at it for a long time. I did not open it. I deleted it without reading the rest. I am not obligated to hold space for the person who stood outside my husband's door and smiled at me over a thermos of soup. HR called me once from Nathan's company. A polite woman asked if I wanted to file anything formal. She said they take power dynamics seriously. I thanked her and said I was focused on my marriage, or what was left of it. After I hung up, I sat on the floor and let the quiet answer questions I had not asked. This was not just about love. It was about proximity and permission in a culture that calls some boundaries soft when they should be steel. At night, I walked loops around my sister's block. Streetlights hummed. Windows glowed with other lives. I tried to imagine a future version of myself who could sleep through the night again. I pictured new furniture and a rearranged living room. I pictured mornings that did not start with a name flashing on my screen. It helped to imagine, even if the pictures felt blurry. Nathan sent updates I did not request. He said he had spoken to HR. He said he had asked for a transfer to a different building. He said he had told Claire it was over and blocked her number. He said he had found a short-term sublet. He said he had scheduled counseling. Each message ended with, "I love you." Each one felt like a pebble hitting a closed window. I met him once with a notary and a stack of forms. Practical things, accounts, utilities. The car title he had always meant to update. We were polite. He did not reach for my hand. I did not look for his eyes. At the end, he asked if there was a chance. Not a big chance. Any. I told him I did not know. It was the most honest thing I had said to him in weeks. Healing is not a decision so much as a set of small ones. Drink water, answer a friend's text, fold a shirt, cry, sleep, wake up anyway. I did not feel brave. I felt like a person relearning how to stand on a boat that would not stop rocking. One afternoon, I went back to the house while he was at work. I opened windows. I stripped the bed. I boxed the mug he always used and placed it in a cupboard I could not see when I stood at the stove. I took the thermos from the counter and put it in the donation bin. It felt theatrical. It also felt necessary. Objects hold echoes. I wanted some rooms to finally be quiet. I am not naive. I know couples who rebuild after affairs. I have seen it. I have seen honest work and slow forgiveness change the math. I also know that some bridges, once burned, leave a river no one can cross. I do not know which one we are yet. I only know I am not going to rush the answer just because the question hurts. That night, I wrote a list on a sticky note and pressed it to the fridge. Eat, walk, call Layla. Do not read old messages. Do not reread old messages. Breathe. I stood there for a long time, hand flat over the note like I was pledging something to myself. People tell you grief comes in stages. Maybe that is true. Or maybe it comes in loops. Anger, numbness, memory, resolve, back to anger. Around and around until the edges soften. I feel the beginnings of resolve now. Not about him. About me. About what I will and will not accept. About how I will protect the life I still have. The night I found the text that said same place as last time, I believed I had lost everything. Standing in my kitchen now, I see that everything includes me. I am still here. I am the person who makes soup and leaves porch lights on and learns from what burns her. I am the person who can decide what happens next, and there is power in that, even if it is the quiet kind. Time has a way of softening the sharpest edges, but it never erases them. Weeks have passed since that night at the office, and I still wake up sometimes expecting to hear Nathan's keys in the door. I still glance at my phone when it buzzes, half hoping it is him saying he is on his way home. Habits do not break as fast as hearts do. We speak occasionally, always about logistics, bills, mail, which account needs closing. His messages remain polite, almost rehearsed. He still says, "I love you" at the end sometimes. Like a reflex he cannot switch off. I no longer respond. There are some echoes you must let fade on their own. Claire has disappeared from my world entirely. I do not know if she still works at the company, or if she moved on to another office with another man telling his wife he is working late. I do not want to know. Some chapters do not deserve sequels. What I do know is this. Betrayal changes you. It sharpens your eyes. It makes you notice things you once ignored. The late night calls, the excuses that don't line up, the way laughter can feel like a secret being shared right in front of you. It also makes you stronger in ways you never wanted to be. I never asked to rebuild my life from ashes. But Ari, I am stacking bricks out of the lessons I learned the hardest way possible. There are moments of grief, yes, but also moments of clarity. I know now that I deserve honesty, not half-truths delivered at midnight. I deserve partnership, not secrecy masked as hard work. And I deserve love, the heal kind, not something borrowed from the person sitting outside my husband Essie office door. So maybe in the strangest way, I am grateful, not for the pain, but for the clarity it left behind. I see my life differently now, and I see myself differently too. Stronger, wiser, more careful with the pieces of me I choose to share. And now I leave this with you. If you were in my place, would you ever give someone like Nathan a second chance after a betrayal like this? Or once that line is crossed, is it gone forever?